Okay, so hi everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is the Use Microsoft Teams Effectively mini summit with our third and final speaker, Mike Maadarani, who's an MVP. He's going to be speaking on Discover Private Channels in Microsoft Teams. We also have Scott Restivo, who's going to be answering questions, and then to the tail end, we will ask some of your questions to Mike, and those that we are not able to get to due to a time stop, that we will follow up with. We're building a web page with all the resources coming out of this webinar, be it the recordings as well as the slide shares if they're available, and any resources, as well as blogs with the questions and answers from each one. Just want to say real quickly, Crow Canyon Software is an over 20-year-old company that's been building its own software out-of-the-box applications for SharePoint and Office 365, as well as build your own application software named Nitro Studio. We are a Microsoft preferred partner, and we are excited to be able to offer this kind of resource to everybody in this moment of the COVID-19 virus. And so we hope that everybody working from home is happy and well, or safe and well, and gaining some great information from these amazing MVPs. So Mike, thank you so much for being with us, and I will pass it on to you.
Thank you for the intro, and hello everyone, and thank you for being here. I'd like to extend my thanks to Crow Canyon Software for putting this together. It's great to reach out to attendees and show some of the knowledge online during this time. I hope everyone stays healthy and safe, and doing some physical distancing as well, not social distancing, because social distances, we can still do the social activities within Teams or other social media as well. That's what I've been doing, staying at home, following the rules, keeping my distance, but still connected to others as well. So today we are going to talk about Discover Private Channels in Microsoft Teams. It's been a pretty hot topic, or an ask that a lot of us who started using Teams 3 years ago requested to Microsoft to, when do I do a private channel, and how do I get that? A quick intro about myself. My name is Mike Maadarani. I am an Office 365 MVP, been MVP for since 2015. I focus a lot on SharePoint integration with Teams, a lot of migration to the cloud. I do a lot of tenant-to-tenant migration as well. Been using Teams since day one. I love the tool, and I use it on a daily basis. So we don't have a lot of time. There was a couple of sessions before this, so I'm sure the other speakers shared some of the information about Teams. If you haven't used Teams or you're new to it, it is the collaboration tool for Microsoft. Traditionally, before Teams was introduced, we had multiple ways of sharing or collaborating with each other, whether it was Outlook. We pushed SharePoint to the limit from a collaboration perspective and sharing capabilities. A lot of other tools we had in place in terms of how do we collaborate and talk to each other, whether through webinars, meetings, videos, chats, other third-party apps or line of businesses, up until we got introduced to Microsoft Teams, that we can use all of this together into one place. It is a chat-based workspace from an Office 365, whether you are chatting, whether you are actually creating an apps, whatever you want to do, you want to collaborate on a file, it is the way to go forward from a collaboration perspective, from staying connected, working together remotely, like we're all doing right now, working from home, or securing some information within a team. In addition to that, not only a team is this platform that will allow us to work with it, we have the opportunity also to extend the team capabilities and add more apps that will natively, we would expose them, for example, into SharePoint or a standalone apps that can be integrated or added into Microsoft Teams as well. So there's a lot of rich capabilities that we can use within Teams that is not only targeted for chatting or conversations. So if we look at, in general, what a team is all about. So it is the teamwork. It is the help for the teamwork. Not only, like I said, it's about chatting with each other, one-to-one chat or one-to-many chats. We can have meetings within Teams. We can have video calls within Teams, video meetings. We do have file management. Whatever that file is, once we drop a file into a specific team, it goes into SharePoint. Or if we do a drop of a file from in a one-to-one chat, it goes into SharePoint. So it is one place that most of us right now live in it. Rather than just going into an email and sending a quick email to communicate with someone, whether it is inside the organization or you are adding someone as a guest, if that tenant is allowed to add someone as a guest. I usually live in it more than emails right now. It's there. It's a quick way to reach out to one person. It's the persistent chatting that gives us the opportunity to go and get back to that email or to get back to that conversation I had before through a search that will allow me to search not only conversations, it will search the files, the teams, the channels, the conversations. So it's one place for me to go and do the work, whether I am on a desktop or if I am on the road from a mobile perspective. So to understand all of that and to get into the actual private channel architecture and how things work and what is a private channel and how does it work, we need to understand first where things are, how things are stored behind the scene in Teams. When we talk about Teams, there are so many moving features there. There are so many connected platforms within Teams that we need to understand where everything fits. So for example, the chat service, it is basically, it leverages the Azure storage, and soon it will be moved into Cosmos DB. But also, call it a copy of it, or the messages are stored also in Exchange in the mailboxes. So each mailbox will store those messages. And the reason for that is from a retention and information protection perspective. If we want to do, we're going to talk about it later on in terms of a retention and dispositions perspective. We're going to talk about the e-discovery and the legal hold. If we want to do an e-discovery and a legal hold, we have to have that kind of messages surfaced through Exchange, and that's why we have the chats and the messages surface in there. The images are stored in the media store, and the GIFs are not stored anywhere. They are in memory, so there is no traceability for the actual GIFs where you can go and get them, for example. The files, if you are doing a one-to-end chat, so you're doing a private chat, whatever that private chat is, a one-to-one or one-to-many, if I am chatting with someone and if I am dropping a file to that conversation, it will be stored automatically into OneDrive, into my own OneDrive, and it will automatically be shared with the rest. From a conversation perspective or from a post perspective, if I am dropping a file into that conversation, it will automatically get added into the SharePoint site associated with that team. So this is a table that will give you a quick overview of where things are stored. We've talked about the messages, we've talked about the images and the files, the voicemail, for example, that are stored in individual mailboxes. If you are recording a meeting or a live event within Microsoft Teams, it gets encoded into Stream. Typically, it's within minutes. I have that within 24 hours, but typically within the next 5 to 15 minutes, it will get encoded into Stream. The calendar meetings in the Exchange mailbox, the contacts in Exchange, and the telemetry in the Microsoft data warehouse. We want to make sure that there's no customer content. There is only a telemetry that is stored in the data warehouse from an analytics perspective. So when we talk about a chat, when we talk about the limitation of a chat, group chat and one-to-one chat are pretty useful, but it has some limitations. So if I want to have a private chat, for example, outside of a conversation, outside of a Teams post, I will go and spin off an actual chat. And about the limitations there, if I want to add a person to a chat, I will always have to add people and remove people from the chat. And if I add a new person to a chat, that person will not see the history of that chat that I've had with somebody else. So there's always things that it's okay to be in a one-to-one chat, but sometimes I find myself, if I am in a group chat, I'm always living in that, and the rest of my team don't have access to that conversation. So if we look at Can anyone see my screen right now? I'm sharing the a typical
Yes. It looks good. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for confirming. So this is basically my team. I am Megan here, and I have multiple chats. As you can see, I'll have a lot of chats here. I can do one-to-one chat. I'm chatting with someone. I can go and write to Alex, for example, and Alex will respond back and say, can you join the webinar, whatever that is, and I can add people to it. It is a private one, so others are not seeing it. If I add another person to it, I can add somebody else, and it will turn that into a group chat. But whatever I have typed or I've chatted with Alex, and if I add Lee, for example, if I add Lee to the chat, we'll be able to actually chat with us. As you can see, now it is a group chat. On the left-hand side, top left, it is Alex, Lee, and myself, but Lee will not be able to see the private chat I had with Alex. So that is the limitation that we have, for example, from a private chat or a group chat. I cannot see the history, what happened between the other two. So with that in mind, let's talk about the standard channel and the private channel. So this is an architecture of a standard channel. We have the product launch as a team. We have a design and digital assets. Those are channels, and within each channel, we have tabs. So the digital assets have its own tabs. The design has its own tabs. Those are the standard channels. From a private channel perspective, there's things a little bit different. When it comes to membership, the team membership the group membership is held at the team level. So if I am a member, if I want to modify or manage the membership of a team, it happens at the team level. When we do a private channel, so this is a private channel here, I can go and create a new channel as a private channel. I cannot convert an existing standard channel to a private channel. So if I already have a digital asset channel, which is standard here, I cannot convert it to a private channel. I have to create a brand new one. When this happens, I can add members to that channel. So the membership is still managed at the team level. So if Alex, in my previous example, is not part of the product launch team, I cannot add Alex to be a member of the reports private channel. So the membership is still managed at the team level, but it is at the channel level perspective, the membership are a subset of teams. So let's dig down a little bit more into private channels. When do you do that? I have actually a table. I was informed that there's a lot of questions. When do I create a team versus when do I create a private channel? Typically, when I answer that, there is each organization and each scenario is different, and we go through some cases and what to do so. Who can create a private channel? So private channel, if you are within a team, for example, that's one case. If I have a team and I have to keep some information as confidential for specific members, I can create a private channel. What happens is the actual conversation of a private channel stays within that channel. The files are within that channel only. We can disable creating the private channel at the tenant level. So if you don't want the private channels to be created, we can disable that. Typically, when you create a team, any member can create a private channel, but that can be also disabled. You can say, I only want the owner as an owner of a team. I can say, I only want myself to create a private channel. The private channel, we have limitations there of maximum 30 private channel per team, but we still have the addition 200 standard channel that can be created within a team. So if you want to add a guest to a private channel, that guest has to be part of the team as well. If you disable the creating of a private channel for members, then owners will always be there as the actual member. You always have to have one owner of a private channel. You cannot have a private channel without an owner. So automatically, if I am a member, if I'm allowed to create a private channel, I will automatically be an owner of that private channel. What happens if there's only one owner in a private channel and that owner leaves the company? Then automatically a member will be promoted to as the owner of the private channel. The limitation of the number of members in a private channel is the same as the private channel. As a standard channel, we have 250 members limitation per channel, regardless if it's a standard or private. So from an architecture perspective, we'll talk about, on the left-hand side, you see the group governance. We'll talk about that in a bit. I'm going to focus on the actual Office 365 group and the teams. So if you are in a standard channel, you will have a group mailbox for each of the channel, as you can see here. You will have a SharePoint site collection for the team, and you will have folders for each channel, as we all know that. The Office 365 group the team is associated with an Office 365 group. So anytime you add a member to a team, it will automatically get added to the Office 365 group. But what's different here is from a SharePoint and Exchange perspective, the very bottom, when it says the channel 4 is private, once you create a private channel, it will automatically create a site collection for you. And it will change the architecture that basically all the messages are in the user mailbox as well. So the private channel will automatically create.
Oh, Mike, we're not hearing you. You might have gotten disconnected.
Well, meanwhile, we're getting a lot of questions here on this from this. While Mike's waiting to rejoin. The questions are this about they're really specific questions, and it's really interesting how much Teams is being used and utilized. And here at Crow Canyon, we're developing we have a Teams bots integration with our applications and things. So it's really interesting to see what is possible to do with Teams. It's really, these questions are great. People are asking about GCC, they're asking about ownership, they're asking about Teams channels, admins, can you unlog and change membership?
Good.
Oh, his laptop crashed, he's coming back on. Okay, we got a message from someone who knows Mike, I guess, and his laptop crashed and he's coming back.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I had a blue screen of death actually on my laptop. Well, I apologize again. So this is, we were at this level here where we're talking about creating a new SharePoint site collection for a private channel. So I know what you're thinking about right now is saying, oh my God, every private channel is a site collection. I have enough site collections to manage. How I'm gonna manage more site collections right now? A few things that we need to share with you from a private channel site collection perspective. When it creates a new site collection, what it does is it will create a site named the team name dash channel name, and the documents there are restricted to the actual members. You cannot add, for example, it's a dumbed down version of a team site. So it does not have all the capabilities, all the features of a team site. You can only add lists, for example. You cannot add the pages at all. So that's one of the things that they're trying to make sure that the team site collection is the main one. If you want to go customize it, add more things to it, add pages, that is a way to do it. As you know, the site collections limits has increased from 500,000 to 2 million. So we don't have we don't have an issue with how many site collections we have. 2 million. There is a talk that is going to be increased more than 2 million as well. We're not actually concerned about that. It's more about the membership and the data classifications that we want to make sure that we cover that in a private channel files. So since it is a SharePoint site collection, the classifications happens at that site collection. The life cycle of the actual private channel is tied up to the actual life cycle of the team. if you are in a geo, in a multi-geo capabilities in your tenant, if you create a private channel, that site collection will be created at the same geolocation as the actual team. From a demo perspective, let me jump in back here into this, into my tenant. Oh no, this one, sorry. I'll do this one here. I had everything opened and everything crashed, so I have to kind of re-log in again. I apologize for that. So I'm going to launch the same team that I had before, and I'll show you how things are laid out from a Teams perspective. So once that opens in my browser, you will see I have multiple teams in there, and it will have one private channel, and we'll go into the SharePoint side and we'll see how that works in SharePoint. Again, we'll dive into a little bit onto the retention and disposition perspective for the e-discovery and the legal holds in a few moments. But I just want to show you for the attendees that have never seen or never worked with a private channel, this is how it works. So if on the left hand side here, I have the retail as one of the as one of the teams I have, and I have a report here as my private channel. And the way I create a private channel, the same way I do as any other channel, I'm just going to go and add a channel, and I'm going to call it Webinar Confidential. And from here, I will select a private channel, and when I go next, it will ask me if I want to add more users to it. If I am not member of that channel, I can skip that, and it will create that channel for me with a lock column here. If I go and I load another persona, and I am gonna go and load Alan as one of the team members, and if Alan goes into the teams, Alan will not be able to see the reports or the webinar confidential because Alan is not part of that specific channel. Oh, the password expired, so we're going to skip that. From a SharePoint perspective, if I go into the reports here or the webinar confidential, if I click on the files and I go into SharePoint specifically, click on Open in SharePoint within the Files tab, you will see that Open in SharePoint, you will see that it has specific unique features there that it will give you. This is the actual, we know all of this. This is to say, this is the folder is connected to a channel Microsoft Teams. You can go to the channel conversation. If I click on the home here, it has the similar look and feel of a team site. As you can see in the URL, it has a retail-private. This is basically where it is. It shows us as a private channel. From a management perspective, if we switch into the management of a private channel, you can create a private channel, like I said, via PowerShell also. The private channel site collection will not show in the SharePoint Admin Center. Basically, just we want to make sure that you might be creating a lot of private channels, so that means a lot of site collections. And the idea was, for now, is to limit what you can see in the SharePoint Admin Center from the list of sites instead, but you still have access to it. As a SharePoint tenant admin, you can go and also use PowerShell to list all the private channels, site collections. So the template base, or the template name is team channel #0. This is where you go and get all the site collections for the private channels. As a tenant administrator, if you are a Teams administrator, even though if you are, let's say I am a team administrator or a team owner, if some other member creates a private channel, even the team owner, if the team owner is not part of the private channel, I will not see that private channel. If I go into my team client, I will not see it. As an administrator, if I'm not part of that team, also of that private channel, I will not see it also. However, from a team administrator perspective, I can go into the team admin center. I will see the list of all the actual private channels also. And that's by design, because just in case the actual owners of the private channels are no longer with the company, or I do some management from the back end, I still have to have someone to be able to go into the team admin center and manage that private channel. From the API perspective, it's very similar, nothing different than what we've had before. You can create and add a channel from your team client. You can edit the channel description, add, remove members. Nothing changes, just basically that channel, the membership of that channel is strictly to those members. And that's from a privacy perspective, just because the reason we create a channel, just to secure the content. So when do I create a private channel? There has been a lot of discussions. What are the best cases for a private channel? I have this deck will be shared, and these are some of the cases or use cases we've seen before. When do I create a channel versus when do I create a standard channel or a private channel, or when do I join a team or create a new team? So again, it depends on each cases. On some use cases that can be different from one team to another and one organization to another. For example, I will talk about the first one. If you already have a team with some members, and that work within that members, within that team has to be kept private, and that conversation / collaboration on files will have to be done among multiple people. So I already have a team. Within that team, I need to have some conversations and files private. And I want to share that conversation and that file with more than one person, I will create a private channel instead of creating a new team. So there are a few scenarios. Again, it depends on how you want to take a look at the private channels and how you want to manage your information. There are multiple ways to look at it. So like, again, by default, any team owner or a team member can create a private channel, but guests also, because you're a guest, you can't create them. That settings can be changed by the team owner, so you can turn off the capabilities for members to create a private channel. Once you create, whoever you are, if you are a team owner or a team member, if once you create a private channel, you are automatically the owner of a private channel. You can add multiple members and you can have multiple owners in a private channel, the same thing that you are in a team, but you always have to have one owner. So if there are no more owners in a channel, I cannot remove myself as an owner, or somebody else cannot remove me as an owner. So if I am a team admin and there's only one owner in a private channel, I cannot go in the back end and change the ownership. You must have an owner of a channel. What happens if that person who is the only owner in a private channel leaves the company, then automatically a member will be assigned as an owner to that channel. Removing a member, it's from a channel perspective, it's like the team at the team level. If you remove a member from the team, you can remove a member from the private channel as well. If you remove the member at the team level, that member automatically is removed from that private channel. Remember that the membership is still managed at the team level, and the private channel inherits that. So from a visibility perspective, if I am a member of a private channel, I can see everything. I can see the name descriptions, I can see the conversation and tabs, I can see the files on content. If I am not a member of the private channel, I cannot see anything. Even like I said before, even if I am an owner, even a private channel has been created by another member and I'm not part of that private channel, even as an owner, I cannot see anything. That's again from a privacy perspective. As a tenant admin, I cannot get into the private channel unless I go in the back end and add myself. And that's a way to get into a private channel. Like any other thing we do in Office 365, I can go and add myself as a global admin, for example, to an Office 365 groups or a SharePoint site collection group or whatever I want to do from an administrator perspective. You still have the power through the back end to manage the private channel. We're gonna skip that because we want to talk about, I know in about 5 minutes we're gonna take a lot of questions or less. So I want to talk about the information protection here. What happens from an information protection? What happens from an e-discovery and legal hold? The e-discovery and the legal hold is still happening. It has to be applied at the team level and then not the chat level. So I cannot go and say I want to do an e-discovery on a specific channel. The e-discovery happens at the team level. But from a private channel perspective, there are two things that requires to be done, or it happens automatically. The messages of the mailbox of one user will have to be included as well. So if I am a member of that private channel, if there is an e-discovery, my mailbox will have to be included in the e-discovery. And also the site collection will have to be included in the e-discovery. So when I do an e-discovery, the mailboxes of the users will have to be e-discovered, and also all the site collections within for that private channel will have to be e-discovered. From a legal hold perspective, it's exactly the same thing. If I'm doing a legal hold, it is happening at the team level and not the individual channel level. So I'm doing exactly the same thing. A legal hold will have to be placed at the team level, but also each mailbox and the messages in the mailbox will have a legal hold on it, and also the sites that backing up the private channel will have a legal hold. So this is also a good overview of where is the legal hold. So from a Microsoft Teams chat, one-to-one chat, many chat, private channel conversation, the legal hold is happening at the user mailbox. From a Microsoft Teams channel chats is happening at the group mailbox. The Teams content, the wiki, the files, anything that is related to file-based is happening at the SharePoint level. The private content is happening, the legal hold at the OneDrive. The private channel files happens at the private channel SharePoint site collection, and the private channel communications, it will happen, the legal hold will happen at the user's mailboxes. So all the users' mailboxes that are part of that private channel will have a legal hold on them. From a retention perspective, the private channels won't support retention right now at GA. So the retention is still not happening at the private channel, still happening only, even though the retention, we do the retention at the actual team level, only the standard channel will have information protection. So just want to give some time for question and answers. I know it was pretty quick. We talked with losing 5 minutes of my time. We had about 45 minutes of speed talk here. So any questions, I'll be happy to answer that.
Okay, hi Mike, this is Scott with Crow Canyon Software. Yeah, I apologize to everyone for the break there, but you know that happens. It's if you ever do demos or webinars yourself, you know it's just one of the things that come with it, and you have to work around it. So Mike, you handled it well. You came back on. That's good. We have Chris Webb, MVP, helping us answer questions. You know Chris, Mike. You know Mike. You guys, but he's a very knowledgeable in Teams. Yeah. So I can put him on. I'll take him off mute, and if you want, he's trying to answer the questions that come up. He can unmute himself if he wants. But there are a lot of questions, and I'll pass a few to you. And Chris is trying to answer them also during, through the Q&A, to the questions box. Okay, here's one. What happens if all owners and members from our private channel leave the company?
Yes. So you will, if all owners and members leave the company, then those user mailboxes don't exist anymore, or the username does not exist anymore. That's a good question. They always have to have one owner in a private channel. I'm going to take that offline and see if that automatically gets assigned to the actual administrator. But definitely, I don't think a user mailbox or a user account will get disabled or completely if there is if that person is member of that private channel.
Okay. Does creating a private channel create a SharePoint site also?
Yes, like I said, it will create a new SharePoint site collection. It has a different template. It is a very dumbed down version of a team site. It does not allow you to add pages and customize it the way we do it. It will allow you to add lists and libraries only.
Okay, does the team owner get access to the private channel?
Only if the team owner created that private channel. If I am a team owner and I am allowing members to create a private channel, if the person who is a member created a private channel, it did not add me as the owner of the team, I will not have access to that private channel.
Okay. Chris was answering some of these, so I may be a little, but all right. The one, what happens if you, let's see, what was it? If a member is removed from a channel or private channel and then re-added, do they regain access to the channel history?
Yes.
Okay.
Nothing changes.
What happens if you migrate to a new domain and or tenant?
I'm doing that right now. What's the question? So migrating to a new domain or tenant, regardless if it's private channel or standard channel, there are some limitations from the conversation and chats. Limitations about the tabs and everything else. Unfortunately, it's right now it's a manual process. So I can go and create the teams. I can go through some scripting and the Graph API. I can go and access the source tenant. I can get all the information about all the teams and the channels, how many channels I have, the membership of the team level, who is the member of the channel, if it's private channel or standard channel. I can get that from the source tenant and can recreate that in this target tenant. I can recreate the whole thing. The only thing we cannot really properly import is the conversation and chats. We don't have access to the API to go and import back the conversation and chats and keep the history of that conversation and chats. What it means is I can export it. If I import it back in, if I am the Mike who's doing the import, the conversation and chats for standard or private, regardless, it will be from Mike to Mike. So it's kind of meaningless. So what we do actually is when we do the export, we can export it to a PDF or an HTML file, upload it to the SharePoint site, and tell the users if you want to have access to the history of conversation and chats, you can go and access that file and we'll give you that history. But importing those back into SharePoint, into Teams, it's useless today if we wanted to import that.
Okay. One person asked about adding Planner to a private channel, and Chris Webb answered no dates. Unfortunately, they're looking at adding support. However, that's about adding Planner to a private channel. Any ideas if that'll be coming? Apparently, it's no support right now, and it may be coming in the future, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
There is kind of a workaround with that. So if the planner doesn't need to be private itself, you can still add it to a private channel. So you can technically get the link to the planner and use the website tab in a private channel to get to it, but you can't actually have a private plan unless you create just a whole other group with a private plan itself. So that kind of defeats the purpose of having a channel for that purpose.
That is correct. Exactly.
Okay.
There are some other ways that you can do things. You can be creative, but it's painful. Hopefully, these kind of limitations will be addressed by the product team pretty soon.
Okay. Can an external guest team member be a member of the private channel? External guest team member.
Yes, you can. Absolutely. If you are if the guest is a member of the team, they can be a member of the private channel.
Okay. Where will files be stored if Teams is not connected to a SharePoint site?
You will have a broken team.
Okay.
And it happens all the time. If you did delete that, you've lost the files. If you click on the Files tab, you will have an error. We'll have to restore that to be able to restore that information.
There's a question about legal hold also. Even if the user mailbox is not an exchange online, there's been some questions about legal holds at the last webinars also, Teams and legal holds, and you know.
Yes. So if your mailbox is not online, if I'm assuming you are in a hybrid mode, you can deploy Teams in a hybrid mode. So the legal holds still apply to your mailbox as well, even that mailbox is not online.
Okay. One question also is a private channel a SharePoint site a subsite of the team site?
No, it's a separate site collection. We don't have subsites anymore, or the idea of having subsites in modern SharePoint no longer exists. We're going away from the hierarchical architecture of subsites into a flat architecture. So every time you create a channel, you create technically a site collection.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. So each site collection is like a site. Really, a site collection is a site. There aren't so many subsites anymore, right?
Correct. So when you go and create a site in SharePoint, when we talk about a site, we're technically talking about site collections. We're not talking about subsite.
Okay. Okay. This person said, I set up a team with 23 people in it and want to do a video chat, but my video and phone icons are grayed out, not active. They are still blue for some members on the team. Is there a limit to how many people can be on a team I create and still use video?
The limitation is 250. If you are 23, you should not have an issue there at all. It could be a settings on the user. If there is a team policy if you are part of that team policy, that might have those kind of features disabled for you. But the limitation is 250, not 23.
It might be that they're using a group chat, and in that case, it's limited to 20. So if that's actually in a team, you do say team there, so we're assuming 250, but if you're actually using a group chat, that's limited to 20 for AV. So make sure you're not doing that in a group chat. If you are, you'll need to do a meeting and or a meet now inside of a team.
Correct.
Okay, here's another one. Can a Teams admin, I guess a Teams owner, unlog and change membership in the private channel? That is, for example, all members are, say the members no longer in the organization or something like that.
A Teams owner can, yes, manage the membership. A Teams admin can also manage the membership.
Oh, Teams owner and Teams admin are two different things then, right?
Correct. Teams admin, if I am Teams admin, if I am an administrator of the entire team for the entire organization, I have access to the Teams admin center. I can go and manage the teams in the backend. Correct. Whether it's a standard or a private channel, I can manage that.
Okay. If the owner of a private channel leaves the company, can you designate which other member gets promoted to owner, or is it random?
It is random right now.
But you could change it if you wanted to, right?
But you can change it, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Good. There's a lot of good questions on this. It's really in-depth questions. It's quite interesting. Okay, one thing, how many people can be seen on the video? In the last webinar said only 4 faces can show at once. Is that right?
That is correct. Only 4 faces will show at once. And if I'm speaking and others are not, then my face will show up every time I talk.
And then disappear when someone else talks or something like that?
That is correct. If is more than 5 talking at the same time, that is not productive.
All right, here, this may be a governance question, but this is, how do you manage all these SharePoint sites and multiple files and and then he says, don't you get a lot of duplicate stuff on all these channels and SharePoint sites? Question mark.
Yeah, it is. It is always a question of governance and how do we manage SharePoint and how do we manage team and what is the limitations and how do we cross over and the duplications. It is definitely always a challenge. It comes down to training. It comes down how do you manage your team. It comes down if you put some retentions on teams, the team has not been active or the site collection has not been active for, let's say, 6 months, you can take an action on it. That kind of will force people to behave better, if you want to call it, in terms of how they manage their SharePoint files or their team information, rather than just creating a team and putting SharePoint all over the place. You can have a flow, for example, for management of team creation or management of SharePoint site, where you can go and force the users to follow specific standard governance on how they manage the information. Information management governance has always been a hot topic ever since we started collaborating with SharePoint over 15 years ago. It's getting better. Microsoft will be releasing some tools around governance and how to help us govern the data better. But again, it comes down to how you enforce that through policies, you enforce that through automatic creation of teams or not, and training the end users.
Yeah, that's right. GoCon covered that a little bit in the last webinar about data loss prevention. I mean, the idea where you can't send out a credit card number, it'll prevent it from being sent, or other sensitive information. Is that data loss DLP, I think? Yeah, right?
Yeah, DLP is if you are trying to share or store confidential information or store some sensitive data or personal information on SharePoint or Exchange or OneDrive or Teams. You can definitely have some policies, but again, it's up to the user to be trained. I can put the system in place to if there is any sensitive or personal information being stored, I can take actions against that. I can prevent them from uploading it. I can remove it automatically, or I can prevent them from sharing that document or that information. But again, the tools are there. The training is what you want to do also to make sure that the organization and the users are aware of how things should be done.
Yeah, we are looking to hold a governance webinar in probably 1 or 2 weeks. We're trying to line up at least one in person, if not others, who are very knowledgeable in Teams governance to give a conference on it. What basically happened is now that all these conferences have been, the in-person conferences have been canceled, like the DC SharePoint Fest and all these SharePoint Saturdays, a lot of the people who have this information and have slide decks and information ready are raring to present it to the public, and they don't have the venues they used to in those live in-person, big events that we used to fly. Remember the good old days? We used to fly to conferences.
Exactly. The world is changing. The technology is there. Microsoft held our Microsoft MVP Summit through Teams last week, and it was great. The way they did it, the way they set it up, it took them only a week. They only had a week when they canceled from in-person to virtual to set up this event online.
We're all adapting. But one question that comes along with that is people are saying, why aren't you using like Teams for this instead of GoToWebinar, or why aren't you using Zoom or something? I mean, not why are you using Zoom. Why wouldn't you use Teams instead of GoToWebinar? And my answer was basically GoToWebinar is really set up to handle the large crowds. We have hundreds and hundreds of people at this webinar, and I don't think Teams would be able to handle, like you said, up to 250, and it also doesn't have the admin tools yet to do a really full-scale webinar. So I wouldn't use it for, I think, a large webinar at this point, right? And save it more for group chats or smaller congregations, teams, right?
Absolutely.
What's the thinking on that? Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. For example, Q&A is still lacking from a Teams live events, and but 3 years ago, Microsoft did not have this tool, and we've seen a lot of changes, a lot of improvements into Teams and live events.
Exactly.
Don't be surprised that you will see a lot of added features in the near future.
I think that's a great way for us to end it, actually. So I would like to thank you all for being present with us over this course of 3 different webinars. We will have a lot of resources available to everybody in the next 24 hours. So stay tuned to our web and your email in terms of that. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today, and Chris for jumping on, and Scott answering questions.
Well, one other thing, I know you want to keep going on, Jocelyn, but I did want to answer this one question from a person who kept asking about slide 15. I don't know if you want to share your screen, and let's just nail that one, and then because I won't be able to do that without knowing what slide 15 is to answer that question. Sorry, Jocelyn.
I was actually curious about that myself.
Yeah, there you go. He's asking, slide 15, arrow from channel 2 to SharePoint. Channel 2 Team A to SharePoint, that green arrow is the question that's going on there.
Okay.
To SharePoint, I guess to the bottom left of the green. Yeah.
Right. So here, if I am in a private channel, as channel 4 is a private, it will create a new site collection. In channel 2, for example, is a private channel. It will also create a private site collection. So the diagram here to show you that the conversations are in a user mailbox and the actual files are in a private channel. And one on the left-hand side, when you see the Office 365 group here, I'm highlighting that basically the channel 1 and channel 3, for example, you'll have the SharePoint one site collection with multiple folders, where on the right-hand side, it will show you that things are split from a group mailbox into user mailbox, from a single site collection for channels to multiple site collections for private channels.
Yeah. I think the confusion is that channel 2 arrow down to SharePoint probably should link to channel 1, because technically you can't see 2 in the SharePoint that's down there.
Oh, this one here. Yes, sorry about that. This one here you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the one that seems to be confusing.
And no, you don't.
Yeah, somebody's very paying attention to you, Mike, here. You know? We know our people are involved if they're asking that level of question. She was asking that. Because did you think that answered it? If you can put in, if she can put in her comment if that answered it or not. But if not, and Jocelyn was just about to say this, and I didn't want to rudely interrupt her, but I did want to get that question answered. But it was basically that we're going to have a web page with all the answers, blog, recordings, Q&A. We're going to get.
Mike, do you have that last slide?
Yeah, the 3 MVPs. And also, Chris, we'll get you involved too if you want to, and get, answering some of these questions and get this information out there. There's a huge interest in Teams right now. That I was amazed by the number of people at these 3 webinars of our mini summit, and the kind of questions they're asking are very, very technical. I mean, it's way, it's very interesting questions. How to integrate with this, how to add apps. What about chatbots and Q&A maker? What about governance? What about private channels versus this? And I'm like, wow, there's people who are really deep into this stuff, and it's time to get these answers to them and information out there. So we'll look to CrowCan Software, that is, we'll look to hold another webinar, maybe another mini summit, or at least something on governance, maybe a little more in-depth information, help it out, help get that info out. And just to pitch about CrowCan Software, we are doing, we of course have our out-of-the-box SharePoint Office 365 applications. We have our Nitro Studio application creation platform. Great tool for building apps on top of SharePoint on-premises or Office 365. And we're doing a lot of Teams integration now. We have a Teams bots. We're going to be, we're building apps. We're doing integrations and just helping people move into that space, and also doing consulting on that level too. So anyway, Jocelyn, you want to finish up?
I think we're great. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a good rest of a week. Be safe, be healthy, and keep reaching out. Physical distancing, but social is definitely needed. So keep that coming. Anyway, thanks again, Mike. Thanks again, Chris.
Big shout out to Mike and big shout out to Chris. Thank you very much for jumping in and rescuing me from these questions.
Yeah. And thank you, Chris, for jumping in. And sorry again for being away for 5 minutes. It happens. And thanks, Todd and CrowCan for hosting it. It's been great, and Jocelyn as well.
And to all the attendees for taking time to come to this.
Absolutely.
Okay, everybody have a great day. Stay safe.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.